Woo! What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to The Right Mindset. Today, we're going to go over the fourth step in writing a novel, which is the outlining process. Now, for you pantsers out there, you still need a general outline of where you are going, your big beats. So if you are an architect or a gardener, this video is more about the mental and physical preparation for getting your story beats on the page. However, I will also give you some examples of taking outlining through the stages. Now, for you pantsers who I love and respect deeply, when I say you still need to outline your general beats, it doesn't mean you have to write it all down into a nice format like I'm going to do. However, this video might help you see how to jot it down within the writing process. For example, A has to happen, B needs to happen, C needs to happen. What does that look like and how does it be? So let's jump into it. Let's do it. As always, a big thank you for everyone coming out. Now, there's a couple things I want to say before we get started about what we're going to go over today. The outline, I'm going to be using Morbius for one of the outline examples, which is a movie. However, I will be breaking it down as if we were writing it as a novel. I like to do that. I like to watch movies and television shows and break it down into the outlining, the 27 point outline, and to kind of see where the beats go and stuff like that. And I'm going to clarify some things as well in this video. Now, I know I have a lot of outlining videos in literally the outlining series playlist, which you can absolutely find on this channel. But this, I'm going to take the outlining process and change it slightly in this video to be more about mental preparation, sort of like a little bit insight into how I would personally write out my outlining notes, and of course set up for the process. If you want to get a deeper look into outlining, I would recommend going to watch the outlining series playlist, which goes into extreme depth of each section. But with that said, if you're new here or you've been following for a while and you love what you're listening to, please subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out. Let's jump into it. Mentally prepared. Are we ever mentally? We're authors. We're crazy. There's nothing to prepare for. We're insane. All right. Here it is. The process of outlining or even knowing your general story beats, for you pantsers out there, is going to be a process. Even if you're writing off the hip as you discover your story, that zero draft is a process. Now, first, think of it all in steps. Okay, if each hour was one step, focus on that hour. Is an hour too much for you? Then focus on 30 minutes or 15 minutes. It's going to be your writing time. You have to, when you're dealing with an outline, you have to look at it the same way you would be if you were going to put some time into writing a book. Because an outline, I have a current outline for a fantasy book. I'm already up to 40,000 words in the outline altogether. So it's like writing a full novel almost. It's just not cleaned up in the sense of like it's, you got your flowery dialogue and stuff like that. But an outline is a process. So you should dedicate yourself to some time. But you do want to think of outlining in steps and process steps. Like, all right, the first step is that I have to dedicate some time. The second step is that I have to organize everything into this particular document that I have, or maybe the third step maybe your first step is I want to work on character development. Whatever it is, you have to figure out what your steps are, but think of it all in steps so you can focus, but always give yourself a minimum of 15 minutes. If you're comfortable with 30 minutes or an hour, whatever it is, choose it, make it happen. You go, this is my minimum amount of time, this will be my maximum amount of time, but I will always every day work at least this many minutes on the process. Now, the process doesn't mean just writing. It means whatever is next in your step until you feel comfortable and fulfilled with that particular thing. Number 2, when you're preparing mentally, you want to commit to this. You want to commit to the decision that you're going to be on a schedule. Even if that schedule is randomly spread out, you don't have to write every day, but you should write on a specific day. Block out that day or days and a specific time block that is for you and your outline. Me, I like to write every day. I give myself a minimum of an hour. There are days I'll write 90 minutes to 2 hours. There have been days where I wrote 4 hours, but I always will do an hour. Then I'll take a little break, and then like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Maybe I'll watch an episode of something just to kind of like clean my brain of what I was working on. And then I'll go back and I'll write for another hour. And depending on the day, I might give myself more, but I always give myself that 60 minutes. Okay. That's Sunday through Saturday because this is my job. So I like to work every day, but I also am not lifting up things. So, I feel it's the sacrifice I can make. I'm not doing labor. So, you know what? Instead of having 2 days off to recuperate my body, I will work on my writing, whatever the case may be. All right. Number 3, allow yourself to fail mentally. Prepare your brain that it's okay to fail. An outline, a zero draft, even just bullet pointing your story is not writing in stone. Okay. What I mean is anything you jot down is not written in stone. It's not going to be the final thing. You're allowed to change things. You have to work on your story, and that's a fact. And working on it takes many drafts. This includes the outlining process. So when things need to be revised, accept that you're willing to do so. It'll make the process so much easier mentally. Just because you like an amazing idea doesn't mean it's going to work in that story, but it also doesn't mean you have to throw it out, but it also doesn't mean that you can't just take that and put it into a different story. The point is you have to learn when and where it works and where it doesn't work. You have to be willing to say, you know what? I'm putting myself into a huge hole of inopportunity. It's becoming very passive. Let me go back and start creating some conflict. Let me challenge some choices. Let me give character choices. It's going to change everything moving forward from that point. But I need to because I find myself, the story's getting boring. By the way, that's really a great way to clean up your story is challenge choices or give characters a chance to make choices. That'll create more movement in your story, and it won't just be things happening, which is I can't stand. If you watch this, you know that I hate when stories or movies or anything is things are happening, but nothing is happening. It's very, very annoying. The 4th thing to help you with your mental preparation X is find a writer, find a writing buddy. Okay. Get yourself an author friend who can help you through the process. Plus, help each other. Alternate a specific day of the week where you both give each other notes. You need someone just like a workout buddy to say, hey, we're going to the gym, but your gym is the writing room. It's very helpful to have somebody that says, hey, I know we only write twice a week, but it's Tuesday, 4:00. Do you want to video and write together, or you want to write on your own? But just it's 4:00. Get those minutes in. And again, in that example, it's just twice a week, right? It's just a writer buddy keeping you up on the toes, and you keeping them up because you might be like, oh, it's 4:00. Let me tell my buddy. Plus, I need to write. It's nice to also have a consistent alpha reader. Basically, it's a through the process alpha reader from the outlining and beyond, and you work on it. You give notes. Over the week, you read over their stuff. They read over your stuff, and it's just another eye. Okay. So what is your system? Because this is where are my notes. What is your system? I'm not sure how you organize your notes, but you need to have a system of some sort to help with writing your outline. Okay. Even if your system is chaotic, if it works for you, then that's great. I personally love to have my notes in Google Docs while I work them out. Some authors use different programs with lots of bells and whistles. I remember when Commodore 64 was the computer of choice. And It's not that good of a choice, but I also gave away my age. Anyway, I had books upon books of notes back in the day that outline histories, characters, and story ideas. I still have those books. They're like falling apart and the pencil's fading. It's just crazy. We love our books. Anyway, what notes should you have for your outlining journey? Well, a good note to have is a character name, a brief understanding of them for sure. I personally like to use a spreadsheet with my character's name, attributes, and a few notes on them. Then I work on their motivations. Now, motivations will later add to, like, it's not just motivations like they want to be a great warrior, right? My motivations are actually their plot points. And then I take their plot points and I go, how can I leak these into, how does this influence the main plot, and how does this become its own subplot but also add value to the main plot, not that it has to directly be influencing the main plot. The point is, I might write out a story. I always start with my main characters, my main protagonist. Absolutely, I'll start with the main protagonist or protagonists, and I say, what is their main plot? Basically, I'll write a 2-sentence straight. They want to get into the best art school, but they don't have a lot of money, so they have to do whatever they can to earn the right to be at that college, whatever the case may be. So then I figure out, what is their story? What is their ordinary world? What is their inciting incident? What is the blah, blah, blah. And I just jot that down with simple note, like a simple sentence or a simple 2 sentences. But then I go in and I say, well, now who is this character and what are things I want to happen? So I have my main plot set up, even though I'm willing to change that as I develop the story, but it's a good skeleton to help me build off of that. And my main character, I might start saying, I really want, even though they're an artist, I want to explore why art is profound to them, which might not necessarily be about the main plot. It's a subplot. It's about their relationship with art, or their relationship with someone or someones that let them grow into art. Or maybe there's someone important to them, like a grandparent, and that's where they learn their passion for art. But then that subplot is that grandparent passing away, but it's the inspiration for whatever. My point is, I'll do that. And then I'll take secondary characters and I'll write their story out. It'll be in a line with the story I'm telling, but it's like, what is important to them? And that's why I call it motivations, because it's like, what do they want to happen and how do I want that to influence them? That helps me. It's sort of like the roughest version of an outline, but in the motivations of the characters. And then when I work on my outline, I can look at the motivations, these blocked out in order of progression of that story, and say, how do I move it over into the story later on in the process? My most important notes will always be my brainstorming notes. So before I even touch an organized outline, I love to brainstorm on my story. We talked about that in the first video in this particular series on how to basically write a novel. So assuming you did that already, take those notes and have them handy as I give other notes on other things. But so when I talk about brainstorming, I just put it onto the page. What would be cool things I like? What are things that what kind of relationships do I want to explore? What kind of themes do I want to explore? What would be an interesting challenge to a character? These are things that might not necessarily end up in the story, but they get me thinking. All right. And I might even focus on that 2-sentence plot, that main plot. I'll write a 2 or 3 sentence main plot, and I'll just play off of those ideas. What would be interesting? Why is it college? Why is it an art school? Does the art school end up not being the school they want to be in? Do they find out that art is not really their passion? It's actually teaching art or whatever. These are things I'll explore in my brainstorming process. The other thing is, if I'm writing more of a fantasy world, I might put notes down about a map information. Maybe locations, if there's a castle, if there's a town, if there's a city. And by the way, I'm not overly exploring the world building during this period, but I'm also not limiting myself to any, to only what I need to know. If an idea comes up, I'll just pop it down. It's brainstorming. However, I say to myself, what is important to the story, that 2 to 3 sentence main plot, and why would it be important to know about this city? And if so, what are things I want to know about it? Additional notes will be specifically to like notes that you want. Like, for example, I just said I want to have motivations, I want to have map information, I want to have my 2 to 3 line main plot written out, like just so I understand what it is. But all authors will have their own individual specific notes that they want to keep. I've seen authors with their walls filled with cue cards, whiteboards covered with information. Bless your heart, I love whiteboards. And their desks filled to the top with loose papers. We all have our own system, right? Finally, for where are my notes? Research, research, research. So once you get the brainstorming done, and once you kind of, before you really outline your story, you want to research what it is you did brainstorm, the things you starred and said, I really like this idea, the loose cleanup of how you're going to organize the timeline. Go back and say, let me do research. For example, what art colleges are there? I should know. Do I want it set in real time, our world? Or do I want to create my own world? If so, what is an art school like? What's the difference between an art school, or art university, art college, an art trade school? What's the difference? You might want to do that research. So depending on your story, you will need to research certain elements. If you have a character that decides to be a doctor, you kind of need to know anything about being a doctor, or at least the process to becoming a doctor. Personally, I keep my research notes in a specific color on my documents. So while I'm writing and like I'm brainstorming, which is all on just regular black on white background, if I have a note to research this, or I come up with a name of that, I'll put that in like red in brackets or something like that. Like I'll organize my notes in a way where I will always have to go back through my notes, and I'll see the questions or the process of thought. As I'm working through my notes outline and figuring out where I want to organize everything, I'll notate what I need to do research on. If I need to know something before I can move on in a productive way, I do two things. First, I allow myself to continue outlining the story, but with a general approach. And second, I make peace with the fact that I am going to have to go back and adjust as I learn, and that's okay. But that's for me personally. All right. This is the part of the video that I'm going to tell you now is going to be a little long, but there will be timestamps so you can kind of go through it. I'm going to show you the 3 different processes that I do for working out a story outline. And I'm going to use Morbius as an example. A, because you could go back and watch the movie and cross-reference it with my notes. And B, I already did it as an exercise, so I was like, why don't I just use this? Okay. Set up for process. All right. So things to keep in mind for the outlining process, mapping out ideas is long form, general, or even big plops of data are okay. Now, what I'm about to show you is the 27 plot outline that you would see if you went back and watched the playlist on outlining. This is where I take all my brainstorming stuff and place it into, and or I brainstorm my main plot. Remember I said I write that like 2 or 3 sentence pitch to what the main plot is, and then I try to build on that. This is where I would just lay out the main plot in its beats. So the method, by the way, is basically what I did on the live video. So, but what's nice is Morbius is already worked out. So let's share the screen. Morbius. It's Morbius. Morbius. All right. Who is it? It's Morbius. All right. I feel like Let's see if it's clear enough for you guys. All right, so I'm gonna zoom in, but ultimately, as you can see, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Here's Section 1. Here's Section 2. Uh, Section 3. I'm not gonna go over everything. I'm just gonna go over a small section and then take it to the next level. Okay. Um, as you can see, in Morbius, Section 1 introduced the hero in their or the protagonist in their ordinary world. Point 1, all right, outline point. There's 27 points that you have to hit in a story. Point 1 is literally what is their ordinary world? Where they exist in competency? Um, what is the life they live, et cetera, et cetera. In Morbius, you'll see it begins with the moment where Morbius turns into a vampire. It actually, spoiler alerts. No one saw this movie, so we're good. I only saw it because it was free on Netflix. Okay, so what's interesting, this is called a flash forward. So it starts off at like a later point in the story, and then ultimately it flashes back to when he's a kid. But anyway, so it begins with the moment Morbius turns into a vampire. You've seen it in the trailer where he cuts his hand and he puts it up to the thing. All right. The second beat in this point is it cuts to the ordinary world with where Morbius lived uh, his life. What? His eyes as a child. Uh, Obviously, there's a lot of spelling errors. But anyway, so it cuts to when he's a child and we get to see his world. The third beat we get is getting an award and showing his accolades as an older Morbius. Okay. Fourth is we see Morbius become a doctor and showcasing his expertise. So he like helps a girl that's sick. Fifth is we learn his motivations of wanting to find a cure. Six is where we're introduced to him, his love interest, and his best friend Milo. Seed that he has a short. We're seeding that Milo has a short temper and can be physical. That's introduced here, and explain the rules of what he is researching. 7, we see the vampire DNA research. 8, see the password of pi for everything, which doesn't necessarily come back later in the story, which was weird. So it was like a pointless moment when she's like, it's pi, it's what you use for everything. 9, themes of pushing boundaries are introduced, and 10, seeding the origami that he does. All right, I'm not going to go through everything, but let me just do the inciting incident. There's a mouse where he like injects with the experiment. Mouse 117 dies in that experiment. Okay. Anna goes into an issue medically and induces her into a coma. That's the young lady that he helps earlier to showcase that he like cares about people and he's helping people. But then the mouse that number 117 died actually comes back to life. So he's like, oh, there's a chance. So if I was writing out my like my outline like this is sort of how I would do it. Probably not as chunky as this. I would probably like, layer it out like I did with the live version when I did it live when the brainstorming. But now we got to take this. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. Let's take this. All right. Okay. Now after I do this, I go to the next stage. Okay. So let's stop sharing. Let's go to the next one. Present. You got to present. Share the screen. Everyone. All right. Boop. Okay. As you can see, we're going to zoom this in a little bit. Bloop, 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 bloop. Bam. Okay. So that point goes here. Boop. Woo. All right. We're going to obviously shrink that down. Boop. But you know what I could do? Uno momento, por favor. Uno momento, por favor. Okay. Sorry. All right. Okay. So I'm also going to do this. Bloop. Okay. And then we could just boop. Oh, look, it tells me I spelled everything wrong. Again, I'm a writer. Grammar is not my forte. Grammar and spelling. All right, great writers have great editors. I will say that to the day I die. All right, what we got? Accolades. There, I spelled it right. Okay. Temper. Temper. Okay. All right. So basically, what I would do is this is my streamlined version of the outline you just saw. I have this here because for clients, it's just notes for them. Just the reminders. Okay, section 1 has to be dedicated to introducing the protagonists in their ordinary world. Point 1. This point has to be the introduction, their ordinary world before the disruption. So don't reveal too much. Just show the basic idea of their daily life. And as an example, I use the Alien story that I'm doing for live, actually. I go mundane life of an office worker as an accountant, terrible boss, best friend at work, right? But anyway, oh my god, I had that spelled so bad. In what's this? It's a ordinary world. Okay. So here is a generalized outline of that. I placed that into this. Okay. Begins with the moment of things that are important to know here is the way that I might take this, okay? And I might build on, I might do some, 1 second. Da-da-da, can't take this anymore. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. Thanks. Okay. Boop. All right, there we go. Seed. We seed. I don't like how it doesn't accept seed as a word. That should be there. It's so weird. Got rid of all the lines. Okay. Begins with the moment Morbius turns into a vampire. I might write here, according to the movie, how it is. Like, it would be interesting, even though it's really not, but this is probably what they were thinking. It would be interesting to show people he hired being scared of the area, but Michael Morbius, is not scared. Okay, which shows he is willing to push himself. Okay. Cuts the ordinary world where Morbius is a child in a hospital. Cuts the ordinary world where Morbius is a child in a hospital bed. So, what might I want to establish here? I might want to now, as you can see, I'm not going into working out the scene yet, like what these scenes would look like. I'm just trying to write down things that would be interesting to explore in those scenes. And cuts to the ordinary world where Morbius is a child in the hospital bed. In the movie, they explore the theme of kids die from his disease, his sickness, so often that he doesn't learn people's names. All right. And if you've seen the movie, Milo, I don't think his real name's Milo, but he gives him the name, oh, you're the new Milo. And he's like, that's not my name. He's like, doesn't matter. And it's talking about how like basically like he's apathetic to it. He's just like, I'm gonna die. Everyone dies, whatever the case may be. But we also want to learn that Morbius is extremely smart for his age. Okay. And by the way, how did they do that in the movie? The machine that Milo's on is not working, and he's like, "Hey, I'll fix this," and he fixes it really with like a pen or something stupid like that. Anyway, so then The third beat is getting. By the way, this is all in the movie. Like this is how. Like there's 10 scene beats just to introduce the ordinary world. Like there's a lot of time put into that before the inciting incident even happens. Anyway, getting an award and showcasing his accolade again in the movie to show you what I would write as a theme. I go, uh, Morbius doesn't care about the accolades, which is, like he has more important things to be caring about, which is good. Doesn't care about the accolades. He cares more about getting back to work and helping people. All right. We see Morbius being a doctor and showing his expertise. We want to see empathy from the character, how he works with his team, and uh, emotional connection with his patients are more than a number to him, which shows growth when he was a child. And by the way, this might be a note that is very important to me. This is a I'll do this. And the reason I might do that if I was writing the story is because we're showing emotional growth in the character, and that means it's important to me, which means if I did write this particular note before this oh wait, this has to be before this particular note, not this one, but the kids, this one where right, that means I would have to go back and I would add this part. I go, oh, you know what would be interesting if, like, when he was younger though, he has no empathy for the sick. He has a we are all going to die anyway. Right. So I would go back and make sure to make that clear, very clear when I'm writing the novel, right? It's important. Let's do one more. We learn his motivations of wanting to find a cure. This is particularly, I remember, we develop a relationship with the with Morbius and Milo as adults. Maybe. All right. Anyway, I kind of forget that part, but all right. So that's kind of what I would do in this extended streamlined version. I wouldn't really write scenes. However, if I found myself compelled to write a moment in scene, like for example, being interested to show people we hire being scared, right? Maybe I go, oh, he arrives in a helicopter. Like I wouldn't be opposed to writing that, right? That's the creative process for me. My goal is to go, what is I want to say? What are the main beats, like the main scenes I want to show? Because it's easy to write like a sentence or two about a scene. We need to see the vampire DNA. We need to understand his motivations. We need to see him as a child. Like, but what is it I'm trying to say in that moment? And that's what this section is. So the first part of my outlining process is I just kind of jot down the main plot in that other form that we were on, the 27-point outline, and I'll just do a sentence or two for each beat. I probably wouldn't have gone into this 10 thing, but I was outlining Morbius. I most likely would have just stayed to the main plot, which would be we need to see him turn into a vampire. We need to see his ordinary world as a child and having no hope. This I probably wouldn't have written yet. We need to see him being an expertise. That's important. And actually, a lot of this would be the main part. Okay. Anyway, so once I have that, now I go into the next step because this is just what is it I need to portray in those scenes. So if I take, I'm only going to take, let's just take these two. All right, so stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing that, okay? All right. Then I move it into its own sheet. Its own sheet. Okay. I said sheet for you people with naughty brains. All right. Not shite. Okay. Step 4. No, no. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Boop. Okay. All right. So now this is just for that plot point. Now the reason I have its own sheet is because in the other one, the streamline, it's not gonna have a lot of verbiage. It's just gonna be like a lot of quick notes. But this is where I'm gonna expand. So I would ultimately begin with the moment Morbius turns into a vampire. Okay. So this might actually be chapter. This technically would be like a prologue, but let's say it wasn't. Chapter 1. Okay. I like to do working titles for all my chapters. If I end up using it, I do. If I don't, I don't. But it helps me maintain the emotional cue for the moment. So this is Morbius the vampire, right? Whatever. And then the chapter break, even though this is the first beat in this chapter, and most likely will be the only beat because it's a short chapter. Because I like using my chapters to move the story along, control the theme, the tight, not the theme, the pacing, and I'm not really like each chapter is supposed to just be the inciting incident, the ordinary world. Like I'm not like that. I like the chapters. Some chapters are short, some chapters are long, whatever it's needed, right? Anyway, the chapter break is sort of like what is I'm trying to get here, and he arrives to the cave. So that's the most important element of the scene. Okay, and now I know that this is the main beat. I'll do this. Oh, Oop. All right. So begins with the moment Morbius turns into a vampire. What is that scene? All right. Now, these are the notes I had written. It would be interesting to show the people he hired. So I'll go, all right. So I know that begins. All right. Begins with the moment Morbius turns into a vampire. As you can see, plot points. Plot points. This is the plot point. Begins with the moment Morbius turns into a vampire. This is an additional plot point to that. It would be interesting to show the people he hired. All right, so now let's work out the scene. So in my head, I have to go, all right, he arrives in a helicopter. He has a team of professional soldiers for hire. Uh, here's he has financing. Oh my god. Okay. It appears he has financing, which means we see some crazy tech. All right. We want to see the people scared. So the main pilot wants their money to get out of there. All right. Which is like, urgency. All right, and I might add this little. So what is an added element to this scene moment? Right, to go. Morbius says he'll pay him if he gives him the knife he is carrying. The pilot agrees, and Morbius gives him the wad of money. It's like ridiculous. Gives him a wad of money. This movie's so bad. You think he'd pay him, through like who uses money is what I'm saying. Anyway, okay. Now we go back because that extra moment to then is done. And we know that the vampire, well, we don't know because you're supposed to be making the story from scratch. But since I've already seen it, so the next beat in the scene would be he turns on the tech machine. Water flows from it. Okay, now this is that whole moment. Morbius cuts his hand. Um, everyone around him is getting nervous. He tells them they should leave. He holds his hand up to the water or whatever it is, liquid or whatever. Okay. Bats come flying out of the cave. Boom. Right? That is my outline. Now, obviously, when I write the story, I would write it a little bit different. Now, because there's another in the ordinary world, I want to add another chapter. Okay. Now, this is the thing, though. I'm actually going to grab. I'm going to grab two other points just so you could see what it would look like if I have more than one chapter break. Just so you, and by the way, a chapter break for anyone knowing is usually when there's like a lot, like there's like words, and then there's a line, and then more words, like in a book. Like that's a chapter break, and usually it happens when like the feel or the beat changes, or time has passed. A great deal of time has passed, but it's still within the same realm of the theme and purpose of that chapter. Okay. Anyway, so this is all begins in the hospital. Okay. And then we know that. All right. So a child. Okay. And as we discover that. By the way, this is mostly the main plot stuff we're working on. I'm not adding subplots. If I was going to add a subplot, it would just look like when I'm adding, I would just add those kind of beats. So cuts to this is all the this is all. That's all of this plot point. We have to cut to the ordinary where Morbius is a child in a hospital bed. Kids die from sickness. Okay, so have Morbius in bed, hooked up to machines that are beeping. Okay. And Milo, I forget his real name, but Milo is brought in. We also meet the main doctor and showcase that Morbius and this doctor have a relationship. Okay. Morbius calls Milo, and he's like, that's not my name. And then Morbius is like, doesn't matter. By the way, this wouldn't be the dialogue I would use. I would just kind of write down literally what I want to say as far as like the subtext. And then when I'm writing out the actual scene, I can turn it into, I can make the subtext come out more character based. Anyway. Hello. How long have you been here for? Or whatever their conversation is, right? And then I know that I want to have Milo's machine acts up, okay, which means Morbius has a moment to fix it. Woo! All right. Now, this is still within the he is a child who doesn't care. And the plot point was this. Now we're going to add a new plot point. Now, when I do this, like when I go, the main doctor sees potential in Morbius because he was able to fix the machine. This is a new plot point that I want to showcase, uh, and it would be right in this whole thing. It might even be like for anyone watching a book. It would be words, and then there'd just be like that. There would be no line. It would just be like a nice space between paragraphs. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Same thing, but as a chapter break, but it's maintaining less of a big change. Like the scene doesn't change or something. It's still in the same moment. It's just a different. I mean, so they are going to help them get into a school for the gifted. All right, now because it's a movie, it like flies by really quick, which is annoying. But anyway, since it's not a chapter. Oh wait. By the way, this is chapter 1. This is chapter 2. Since it's not a change of the chapter, it's just a chapter break. All right, I'm gonna do this. Okay, and I'm gonna change this to uh, an adult super doctor. Okay, but know why? Because I need this first. Boop. Okay, getting an award. All right, Morbius doesn't care. He cares about getting back to work. So he is called up for his accomplishments. Morbius is now in his 30s or however old, 30s. He has long hair. His body is frail, and he uses walking sticks to, or whatever they're called, help to get him around. We learn a bit about what he is a doctor of through the ceremony. Okay, and then we want to add this fourth beat within the same section. We see Morbius being a doctor and showing his expertise. We want to see empathy for the thing. Okay. Morbius walks into the hospital. He works at, which is a specialty hospital. This has to be read. This is the last little bit, and then anyway, which is a specialty hospital. Get him talking with his team. The young lady who is a patient, and see how he is playful and more empathetic than he was with a child. He even makes a joke. He gives his award to the little girl. Okay. Oh no, he gives a playbill from the award. That's what I think happens. Award Joe. Girl. Okay. We meet his love interest, who is also a capable doctor in that field. Boop. That's weird. He gives a playbill to the young lady. He gives a playbill. I plan from the event where he received his award. Event. Now, as you can see, when I'm ready to write my chapter, it's a whole other process we'll go into another time. But so here you go. This is chapter 1. Morbius the vampire. He arrives at a cave All these elements would be in that chapter. Um, this would be my first run. You see, like I would just kind of brainstorm quick and just kind of write out like things I would like to happen. Then when I feel comfortable, that's that scene or multiple scenes. Multiple scenes would be these chapter breaks. You know, they're multiple. This is a scene. This is the only scene we have in this moment. When I feel it's concluded, I'll go to chapter 2, and then I would, add that, as you can see, where I need it. All right. Another thing I might do is make sure I'm challenging moments. So he arrives in the helicopter. He has a team of, like on my second run through, he has a team of professional soldiers for hire. It appears he has financing, which means we see some crazy tech. But he has to be capable, so we can't challenge him in a way where like he's defeated. But the main pilot wants their money to get out of there. Mobius says he'll pay him, right? This is a challenge, by the way. So the pilot is like, I gotta get out of here. This is too dangerous. Oh, Morbius makes a choice. Well, then leave, but I'll give you the money after you give me the life. I'm not scared. So we're learning a little bit about who Morbius is, which is he's willing to push himself. The pilot agrees, and Morbius gives him the wad of money. Turns on the tech. Water flows from it. Morbius cuts his hand. And maybe I want to challenge it a little bit more. Maybe I could say instead of the bats flying out, the bats don't fly out right away. Men he hired who are scared don't want to go in. Morbius has to push back and convince them. Right? Maybe. Right? And then this might be another Morbius. Maybe Morbius himself has to go into the cave a little more. Maybe they have to throw dynamite into the cave. Dynamite to get the bats stirring. Maybe these are all different maybe challenges. That's the beauty of writing. By the way, none of this happens in the movie. He doesn't challenge any of this, but maybe they shoot a gun. Whatever. The bats go even more wild and end up killing some of the hired soldiers. Morbius still accomplishes what he did. However, now he has the emotional baggage. Having their deaths on hands. Now, just the spoiler is that ultimately later on he becomes a vampire and he eats everybody on the on the boat. So this would technically get accomplished there. That but the thing is, Morbius doesn't find out until way later, and this situation would be that he actually has that emotional baggage going straight through. And this is how I challenge myself. I say, well, what could happen? What if he did this? What if he needs the bats to come out? They're not coming out, so I need to challenge it. What's the choice he's going to make? You know what, guys, go in. You people don't want to go in, great. What's the next solution? Dynamite. All right, dynamite. Bats stir. What does that mean? Well, maybe the caves start falling down, causes the mountain side to break up and fall. Morbius stays and takes the front of it and still turns into a vampire, right? Which leads to another scene where he pushes himself out of the rubble. Everyone else is dead. All right. My point is, when you're writing, feel free and feel comfortable challenging the things you write, and it might change the story. Because right now, see this, because this scene happened in this moment, that means this scene can't happen yet, or it can happen. Uh, However, when we get to the point, which is we actually arrive back at the vamp at the we arrive back at the bat moment in the movie. Like he goes, like the movie does the flash forward in the first scene, and then like the movie works itself up to it. Basically, an inciting incident happens. He gets money from Milo, and he sends him to go to the vampires. Like you literally, the scene, the writing could be that all that does take place. He ends up going to Milo. He says, I found a cure. Let me have the money. Milo gives him the money. We see him, the scene ends with him stepping onto a helicopter. We know what helicopter is because we've seen the helicopter, or we've experienced the helicopter in the story. But the next chapter is literally him pushing the rocks off. Anyway, it makes the story interesting. All right, so let's. By the way, if anyone wants any one of these things, these templates that I have, uh, feel free to email me. Um, Let me give you my email. Uh, Actually, ask me in the comments, and then I'll give you my email in the comments. And I'll hook you up. It's free. I won't sign you up for anything. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to go on any mailing list. Just want to help. All right, final thoughts. Let's do this. Okay, whatever technique you use, know that there are 1,000,001 different techniques out there. To be clear, the 27-point outline, also known as the 27 chapter outline, created by Kat O'Keefe, may not feel like it fits within the traditional 3-act structure. I assure you it does. However, each act is not equal in length traditionally, especially in a film or a story, right? Act 1 is usually 25% of the story. Act 2 is 50% of the story. Act 3 is 25% of the story. The way to really look at that is imagine it was really 4 acts. You have Act 1, 25. Act 2 ascending to conflict is 25. Act 2 descending from conflict is 25. Act 3 is 25. To give you that in perspective, a 2-hour movie would be 30 minutes for Act 1, 60 minutes for Act 2, 30 minutes for Act 3. That's absolutely the case with movies. But with novels, you have a little bit more breathing room because you're trying to find the rhythm of your story and, whatever the case may be. However, so think of your acts as percentages of the total word count. But even in that situation, you can fit all 9 points of Act 1 into 25%, all 9 points into Act 2, all 9 points. Because these points are really plot beats that help move your story along. If you're going to go with a more traditional 3-act structure, I would say this much for your outlining process. Act 1 has to be what is your ordinary world, the inciting incident, and their choice to push into the new world, right? Act 2 is going to be your trials through the ascending conflict to the main point, the actual midpoint, and the consequences of the midpoint through the descending conflict. Act 3 will be the last battle. It gets worse before victory, and obviously the resolve. To conclude, you want to have fun with the outlining process, no matter what you use to work through it. It's writing, it's art, it's your passion. So take it on with an open mind, open rules, and a willingness to accept that the process will have its ups and downs. By the way, if you want a more in-depth look into the outlining process, you can click the playlist for outlining your story that will be in the description below. I do want to say one quick thing. Like, for example, Act 1 is what is the ordinary world, the inciting incident, and choice to move forward. The 9 plot beats fit in that. Like if you look at the outlining process, you'll see that the ordinary world is 3 plot beats. Then the world is changed, is 3 plot beats, and then or their world is disrupted or whatever the case may be. Is a plot beat, and all stories, do it. It's it is what it is, right? So, like section 1 is introduce the protagonist to the ordinary world. Section 2 of Act 1 is problems disrupt protagonist's life. Section 3 of Act 1 is the protagonist's life changes direction. That doesn't mean those are all extremely long moments in a story. They're just beats that need to happen. Like the beat to know what their ordinary world is has to happen. The beat of the inciting incident has to happen. Their reaction to the inciting incident has to happen. Their long-term impact of the inciting incident has to be a reflection of. They need to take action. That needs to be a part. There was somebody who commented, and I agree with them. The math might not work out, but I agree with him when he says Act 1 is 25% of the story, Act 2 is 50%, and Act 3 is 25%. I agree with that. The math does work out because these plot points, these plot beats, whatever, right? The 27 points are plot beats. And you have to fit those within those sections. And if you take the 27-point outline and relate it to any story, you'll see that it all fits in there. But that's besides the point. All right. With that said, that's it. I guess we're done, right? Conclusion. The next video in this series will be deciding on your ending. Thomas, didn't you just go over outlining? Yes, I did. Since it takes a bit to work on an outline, you need to know what to do when you feel your outline is finished. Deciding on your ending is taking a deeper look into the ending of your story and if it makes sense for the journey you've been on to get there. It's always okay to change up, clean up, or adjust any part of your story. But in the next video, I will show you how to finally analyze, or how to really analyze your ending to get the most out of it. And what that means is, after you work out your outline and everything, it's taking a good long look, a deep look at the ending of your story and saying, is this the ending that concludes the journey? Is this really what it is? And we're gonna look at how to really analyze your ending and say, is this right? Time for the questions of the audience. I was wondering, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Let me know in the comments. I'm just kidding. If you rather have a more serious question, what is your ultimate goal for your writing? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to learn a little bit more about improving your craft, insight to the industry, and hearing from fellow authors, as we have the podcast, The Right Mindset, please subscribe and hit that bell icon. All right. And as always, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and keep developing the right mindset. What? See you next time. Bye.